Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, haqqa hamdihi wa salatu wa salamu ala ashraf al-mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala li yawm al-din. All praises for Allah Ta'ala, as it is His right to be praised. And we ask for His peace and blessings to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the seal of all prophets, the one who came to us with the true word. Every single word that left his mouth was revelation from God. No speech he uttered was ever from his own caprice or ego, it was for his own whimsical desires. He was a man sent to guide humanity from the darknesses of kufr, the darknesses of disbelief, the darknesses of being slaves to creation, to being slaves to Allah Ta'ala. We ask for His blessings, peace and blessings as well for the family of the Prophet ﷺ, his companions, his brethren in prophecy, his forefathers in prophecies, all those who follow in his footsteps with love and sincerity. May Allah make us amongst them. Ameen. For amongst the miracles of this religion, and there are many miracles in it, for amongst the miracles of this religion is the preservation of this religion. The very preservation of this religion is a miracle. If we were to study it, we would not be able to comprehend it. And this is most easily seen if one were to look at the book that is being read right now with Sheikh Samir, Sahih al-Bukhari. The book that was put together, a compilation of hadith put together by a great scholar, a great imam, known as Al-Imam al-Bukhari. This book, if we were to just look at how Imam Bukhari put it together, we would not be able to understand it. He traveled the world looking for people that he heard about who had sound narrations or strong narrations of Prophet ﷺ. And his rubric, his criteria for judging the soundness of that chain of transmission, for judging the soundness of the character of the individual is taking from, was so tight, was so high, that he would, for example, he would travel days or weeks or months at a time where there were no paved roads, there were no airplanes, no trains, no steamboats. We're talking on foot. He would get somewhere really far away. He'd find someone that he had heard from the Prophet ﷺ. He'd find that person. Just the existence of that person is a miracle. Someone who can say, I heard someone say that he heard from a companion, that he heard from the Prophet ﷺ. Just the existence of that in thousands of people throughout the ummah at that time and place is a miracle. So he would go and travel, not just to see one, but hundreds or thousands of people in a time where traveling was difficult, and he would verify all their chains of transmissions and verify their character. So the presence of those individuals is a miracle, and the work he put into verify their chains of transmissions and take from them was also a miracle in itself. He went to them and he would see things. He would verify this person's character, that person's character. For example, he went to see one person, and this person who was said about him that he had a hadith, he saw him with his goats. And this man, he did this to his goats. He called his goats. He closed his fist and called his goats. And so Imam Bukhari looked at him from far away. He didn't yet introduce himself to it. So he travels for days or months to this man, seeking hadith of Prophet ﷺ, and just sees him from far away with his goats, calling his goats. And there's nothing in his hand. He knows there's nothing in his hands. So he just turns right around and walks home. If this man were to lie to goats, how can I trust to take from him a hadith of Prophet ﷺ? And so through his hard work and diligence, his piety, he compiled this compilation of hadith that is, without a doubt, in the ummah known as the most sound book after the book of Allah Ta'ala, the Quran al-Kareem. And this book, the blessings in this book are countless. The armies of the Muslims used to go into battle carrying this book in the first ranks, and it would bring them victory. The just rulers of the ummah used to memorize this book from cover to cover. It is a book that the history of the ummah is strongly tied with. It is a book that if we were to sit and read it, first of all, people spend years becoming qualified just to read it. And then they spend years reading it over and over and over and over and over again. It is a book that literally, it took a lifetime of miracles to put together, and it will take a lifetime just to understand. And so alhamdulillah, it is a blessing from Allah Ta'ala to have an opportunity to study such a book with the likes of the shuyukh who are here to teach us. And the thing this book represents to us, a chain of transmission to the Prophet ﷺ is without a doubt one of the most important facets of preservation of this religion. The great scholar, Abdullah bin Mubarak, he says, إِنَّ الْإِسْنَادِ مِنَ الدِّينِ لَوْلَا الْإِسْنَادِ لَقَالَ مَنْ شَاءَ مَا شَاءَ. The great scholar, what did he say? He said, verily, the chain of transmission, your ability to say, I heard from so-and-so, or heard from so-and-so, from so-and-so, all the way to the companions, the Prophet ﷺ, that ability to say that is from the actual religion. It's from Islam. Why is that? He says, لَوْلَا الْإِسْنَادِ لَقَالَ مَنْ شَاءَ مَا شَاءَ. If it was not for this chain of transmission, anyone would come who wants to say something and say whatever they wanted. And how would you verify? Was it actually from the Prophet ﷺ or not? It would be chaos. It would be chaos, and there wouldn't be any preservation of the religion. And so what we have now as Muslims, we have something completely beautiful. We have the ability to trace every single facet of a religion straight to the Prophet ﷺ. Even the details of how we utter certain letters from the Quran, how we utter them, we can trace it to the Prophet ﷺ. How we put our fingers in sujood, whether we spread them or we hold them tight, put them normal, we can trace it to the Prophet ﷺ. Every single action that we do, we can create a chain between ourselves to the Prophet ﷺ, not just in our worship, but in everything else as well. There are some things we do in our lives that if you were to do it, other than how it was transmitted, it wouldn't be accepted. If you were to pray, other than how the Prophet ﷺ taught us how to pray, your prayer is not even accepted. If you were to fast, other than how we were taught how to fast, your fast is not even accepted. So there are certain actions that we do, we recognize you have to do it the way it was transmitted. But what about everything else? What about the routine actions that we do day to day? Every single thing that we do in life, either we can take it from the Prophet ﷺ directly, like our prayer, our worship, our fasting, or we can take it using principles the fuqaha have extracted from a hadith they heard directly from him. So even, for example, this gathering that we're having tonight in Macungie, Pennsylvania, there probably wasn't a gathering like this in the Prophet's time with fans and lights and carpets in this kind of style with American coffee being served. But every single action performed in this gathering is based on principles that we've taken from scholars who have derived them from a hadith they've heard from the Prophet ﷺ. And so, with that in mind, what does this teach us? What does this teach us? Just like how you can rest assured that when you pray like the Prophet ﷺ taught us to pray, your prayers are accepted, your actions are blessed, and your scales are being made heavier, you can rest assured that if you were to make the rest of the actions of your life based on these prophetic principles the scholars have derived of halal and haram, of what is allowed, what is not allowed, how to do this, how to do that, you can rest assured every single action of your life then becomes an action that is accepted by God, just like your prayer would be, an action that will make your scales heavier, an action that is blessed and will enrich your life. And so we ask Allah Ta'ala to make us people whose lives are just like that. Lives that are full of blessed, accepted, prophetic actions would change the Prophet ﷺ from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep every single day until we die, inshaAllah Ta'ala. We ask Him to give us tawfiq, to become keys to the doors of goodness, locks to the doors of all evil, to make us people of Iman, Islam, Ihsan, and Irfan, to take care of all of our needs, whether they're individual, familial, or communal, to guide all of our family members who are not Muslim to Islam, all of our family members who are heedless to the Sunnah of Prophet ﷺ. We ask that for ourselves, all those who are listening, all those in attendance, all those who are in our loins not yet to be born. Walhamdulillah bil alameen.